We're live.
Good morning everybody and welcome to the Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee number 4. Declare the meeting open. I note that all members are present. We don't have any apologies. Does anybody have any interest to declare in relation to today's proceedings? No? No? Okay, so we'll move to item number 1 on the agenda, and that is the Civic Car Park strategy, noting there's 2 recommendations. A, that the report of the CBD Civic Car Park strategy dated 30 July be received and contents noted, and that a council workshop be held to discuss the operations and pricing structure of the Civic Car Park to optimise its function in activating the Nicholas Street precinct. I call on the relevant officer. Thank you, Greg.
Hi, Greg Thomas, Coordination Performance Department, CBD Redevelopment. So I'll take it that the paper has been read, but in summary, this paper discusses the Civic Car Park, which is under the new Civic Square, and its future operation in terms of pricing and hours of operation. This car park is seen as a critical component to the successful activation of the precinct, both the Civic Square, the library, and the retail precinct. So it's critical we get issues such as pricing and hours of operation right. So there's extreme complexity in this issue, given that this car park has not operated to full capacity for some years. So we don't really have the data to support its usage going forward. So by that, what I mean is, if you think about even recent times of COVID-19, the precinct's demise over time, the closure of Woolworths. So it's basically, since car park was moved to a pricing model in 2015, basically since about 2016, it's basically been underutilised. So the issues that the paper raises are really about 3 things. Is the car park there solely to activate the precinct? Is the car park there to act as a commercial car park for council, or does it have a dual role? The paper also touches on a couple of other issues, such as we're in the process of moving to the market to obtain an operator for the car park. The current arrangement finished in April 2020. There's an arrangement, a rolling month by month, that finishes in December. So we're anticipating that we'll have in place a new operator before that date. So that's a positive. So the paper also talks about, before I get back on hours and price, some grandfathered arrangements that exist, and also an opportunity for councillors to give consideration to some land that we hold on the corner of Ellenborough Street and Bremer Street. There's potential there for that site to be used as an overflow for major events, and also other uses going forward. So I'll just go back to the pricing and the hours, unless you want to ask a question.
That's fine.
So the pricing is a complex issue, and overarching that is council has a policy around on and off street parking, and how the pricing of off-street parking should be associated with on-street parking. So if you read the paper, it mentions about the fact it's about, I think, 70 to 80% is the rate for off-street parking. Make sure I don't make a mistake here. And that helps engender turnover on the streets, things like that. So there's real positives about getting that right. So, but in the same time, you have to balance the usage of the car park. So if we look forward to how the car park might operate in the future, we have to ask, well, how are we going to actually allocate the parks? So there's an existing contract with SEQ Water for 200 car parks. So noting that there's 994, so that contract finishes on the 28th of February 2021, and council will be starting negotiations with SEQ Water on that going forward. So that's a key issue for council to give consideration going forward, because that's a bit of a revenue generator for the operations of that car park. Looking forward to, we don't have any data on how many people are going to use the library going forward or the civic space and what the timing of that demand is. Another thing that's sort of unknown is, and council may have to have a policy on this, is there going to be 750 council staff moving into the building that adjoins that car park? On a wet day, where would you park? I think I'd choose to park in that building, sorry, in that car park next to the building. So we have to think about the demand that's going to drive that and the impact on the car parks which will be available for what they call the transient parkers, you know, that might do the 0 to 3 to 0 to 4 hour parking. So all those things have to go into the mix and shape the pricing so that the pricing impacts the demand and how it's used. Okay, so just moving to hours of operation. So currently the car park is open from 5:30 till 10. So council will need to give consideration to how those hours move, particularly at the night time end, like when there's an event on. Do we open, or if a cinema operator, you know, starts, what time do we shut the car park? And then what's the alignment between the Bradfield Bridge and that car park for events? Because at the moment the Bradfield Bridge shuts quite early. So it's an opportunity for council to look at that issue as well. So I guess what I'm trying to portray to you here is there's a number of issues, all intrinsically linked, that require decisions about the model going forward for when the precinct starts to get operated at a much higher level or higher demand for the car park starting in November when the library opens. So, councillor, that's pretty much...
Thank
Try
you,
to give
Mr.
you a
Thomas.
summary
Yeah,
of
no,
the...
that is a great comprehensive
Yeah.
summary. Do we have any questions for Mr. Thomas? Mayor?
For my chair. Thank you for a great report. May I ask, one of the attachments there, attachment to the infrastructure strategy report, it's marked as a confidential paper, and also the consulting report. I would agree that the consulting report would be a commercially confidential report.
Yeah, so
would be the same with the strategy report. I think there's...
Okay, so why was that? Only because the contractual arrangement with SEQ Water was quantified in both of those reports.
Okay.
So that was the driver for that decision.
Okay. I might chat to you about if you could redact that out.
Okay.
I think people will be interested to see
Yeah,
that.
sure.
We talk about the fact that the car park will have 994 spots. How many spots did it have before this redevelopment? To give people an understanding.
Okay, so...
More or less?
It had more.
At all?
So when it was built, I can't remember the exact number, but it was 1,440, something around that. So the decision to place the administration building where it is,
Yes.
cut the car park into 3 components, and the middle component has the administration building
Right.
sitting in it. So there's just under 200 car parks under the administration building, which will be used for council staff, councillor vehicles, that sort of thing going forward.
Okay.
So there is some residue of the car park on the eastern side. That's the corner of Bell Street and Bremer Street, currently where Hutchinson's work site is, but that's not attached to the other part of the car park. So yeah, so 994 is the number.
Okay. And I may ask, we talk about the 200 car parks that SEQ Water have. Obviously, I'm assuming they're workers who are working at the Icon building. Would that be correct? Does the Icon building not have enough car parks?
No, it's not. No, it's not for staff. So the Icon building is more for company vehicles. So
There is parking in there. In the Icon building, there is
yeah,
parking.
there is. Yeah. So there are some company vehicles of SEQ Water that park in the car park now, but it's largely to do with staff. And it was largely, as I understand it, associated with the move of SEQ Water from Brisbane to here, perhaps to assist the staff in transitioning.
Okay. And I say this because I used to work in that. I have worked in that building, the Icon building, and know the building well. You may have to take on notice, but how many car parks are in the Icon building? Do you know? Okay.
No, I don't know. Sorry. Yeah. So the SEQ amount of 200 is largely around staff.
Yes.
With, you know, maybe I might see 5 to 10 vehicles down there at maximum of their badged vehicles. That's it. Yep.
Mr. Thomas, I just wanted to ask about the overflow car park that you spoke about.
The potential.
Potential, potential.
Yep.
You know, car park, the two issues I hear from the community around the development relate to car parking spaces that we don't have enough, and secondly lighting and security.
So I'll talk. Yep.
So if we talk to, you know, if particularly when we think about the urban utilities spaces, taken into consideration, is there the potential for making the potential overflow car park a permanent arrangement or a permanent option for parking within the CBD?
Okay, so I just want to state that there is a conflict here with council's overarching transport policy. Like, I'm not a transport planner, but as I understand it, the driver for that is to minimise the amount of parking within the CBD in part. I just want to put this out there.
Okay, sure.
But, you know, at the moment that'll happen over time, but at the moment there will be demand. So, so firstly, the issue of lighting. So the car park lighting on levels 1 and 2 was replaced as part of the refurbishment, but we're currently looking at refurbishing levels 3 to 6 going forward. So before the car park opens, all the lighting at those levels will be upgraded. So,
yeah.
Yep.
So just on that upgrade, as you know, I went down recently for a night tour, and I still had concerns around the level of lighting, and obviously until the upgrades, as you refer to them, are completed, we won't know what the end result really looks like. But and I would also like to respectfully put it out there that what a burly male tradesperson may envisage as adequate lighting may be very different to a young female, for instance, or a mother with small children. So we'd just like to just keep that in the back of our minds, that we do a final review. But sorry, back to the car park. Is it possible to maybe get a report around contingency plans for? Is it, you know, and I'm not after an extensive report.
you're talking about for major events, for example, for parking, is that what you're getting at?
Well, yes, but potentially, my concern is we won't have enough parking.
Yep. So
generally.
So part of, so you're talking about during the
when we
day
talk
or
about
events as well?
During the day, when we talk about a number of spaces already taken up by urban utilities, council officers, certainly the users within the 0 to 3 hour space I see being library users who won't want to incur a parking fee heading to the library, so they'll be
So price is a useful tool to manage demand in the car park, and at the moment, for example, the price that someone pays when they get their like an early bird rate, from my view, is quite competitive. So there's an opportunity to raise that, to drive demand down there, and without being too specific, I've been in discussions with SEQ Water about the new contractual arrangements.
Sorry, SEQ Water.
Moving forward, and I suggested at that time, without being specific, there was an opportunity for them to revise their numbers down, given I was considering their impact on the activation of the car park.
Thank you. So it's probably a good opportunity for us to have a chat at the briefing about it, and then work out.
I can be a bit more specific then, if that's okay. So on the Ellenborough Street land, we did do some initial consultation with council's planning and infrastructure team on that. So there's some opportunities to move that forward, but there'll be some money required to actually upgrade that land, because that in the short to medium term, council has no plans for that. It's the site of the future performing arts centre. So in reality, it's sitting there vacant and will be for a long, long time. So that's why the team thought it was a great opportunity for an overflow.
Yeah, great opportunity, but we would be very interested in
seeing it's perfectly placed to the Bottle Alley connection as well.
Yeah, okay, so let us discuss that further.
At the workshop?
At the workshop.
Okay.
Thank you.
That'd be great.
No further questions, Mr. Thomas? Thank you.
Before we go to moving, may I ask for a variation? Or add a C, if that's okay? I'd like to put forward that that infrastructure strategy report, if we could have a redacted report published, just to remove that commercial in confidence. I think it would be good for people to see what the policies there and
So I need to move on.
that the attachment infrastructure strategy report have the commercial confidence. The attachment is the infrastructure strategy report. Sorry.
So it's the attachment to the report titled.
Yeah. Be redacted, or have the commercial confidence redacted. Yeah. Be redacted
And then made public.
and then made public.
Okay, could I have somebody move that? Thank you, Mayor. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Any further discussion?
If I may, Chair, I just want to reiterate the point that you made about safety in the car park. Thank you for allowing me to join you with, on that last week. You know, we went level by level, looking at the lighting in the corners, I guess looking at it as women and also as mums as well, so making sure that that lighting makes sure that safety, and when we're in a location of cameras, I know you're pointing out the importance of cameras as well.
Okay, so we'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous. Now we move to the second item on the agenda, which is the Ipswich Central Executive Report number 19, dated 4 September. Can I call the relevant officer? Thank you, Mr. Madigan.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. Sean Madigan, General Manager of Coordination and Performance. So this report is the monthly executive update on the construction aspect of the Ipswich Central redevelopment. As you will see in the report, consistent with previous reports, we are on schedule and within the allocated budget. The library has reached practical completion. The civic space has reached practical completion. We are in a bit of a maintenance period just to establish the grass and finish the public art in the civic space before an opening. The library is being fitted out as we speak. There has been a delay on some shelving in the library, so we were aiming for a 28 November potential opening for the library. I am now advised, as of yesterday, I think it's now the 7th of December would be the actual practical opening of the library. However, that is to be determined by council as to the optimal time for that. We also need to turn our mind to the opening of the civic space as well, and the opening of that. So that would be able to be coincided with the opening of the library, or alternatively even a week prior to that. And we are working with the council's library and events team around what that might look like, with a view to presenting council with some options in that regard. The risks remain the same as last month. COVID is a continuing risk to the project, but other than that, the progress is quite good.
Any questions for Mr. Madigan? No.
Thank you.
Can I ask somebody to move recommendation, please? Thank you, Councillor Johnick. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Milligan. Open it up for discussion. If there's no discussion, we shall put that matter to a vote. We have 5 votes in the affirmative. Now move on to item number 3 on the agenda, which is the Retail Sub-Project Steering Committee. Can I call on the relevant council officer, please?
Good morning. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, councillors, Chair. My name is James Hepburn and I chair the Retail Project Sub-Steering Committee, of which this report concerns. I'll take the report as predominantly read, but there's 3 points I'd just like to highlight. First being with the leasing status, the second precinct activation, and the third with bringing forward elements of the scheme to meet demand. As it stands, the project is fully concentrated on Eats, Metro B and the venue buildings coming forwards. Within these you have 29 tenancies. At this stage in time we have 3 tenancies in legals and 3 more in heads of terms soon to be converted into legals. So key ones to note are obviously the cinema, go-karting, which have all been mentioned before, and the others followed are grab-and-go food and the likes of coffee shops. So as it stands, we're actually in a very good place in what is quite a difficult market. The retail subcommittee's primary focus is closing these deals and reducing risk on the capital expenditure that's going on at the moment. Second point was about precinct activation. The development team have now got full control of essentially activating, running events and bringing pop-ups and commercialisation into the square and into what is known currently as Nicholas Street precinct. So this is starting to come live, in particular with the thoughts about the library opening later this year and leading on to the admin building and obviously what it will be a very much open and publicly used square going into the early parts of next year. That leads on to where we stand in terms of the programme. We have Eats and Metro B with a lot of market interest and the ability to actually expedite the development of these phases and bring them forwards to meet market demand and also help support the activation of the library and also the admin building when it opens next year. So just the final point is to say that we will be bringing forward a discussion paper about bringing forward those elements of the scheme. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Hepburn. Any questions? I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask somebody to move the recommendation? Thank you, Mayor Harding. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Milligan. Now open it up for discussion. No?
The only thing is obviously we're very much wanting to see the leasing deals to progress. I mean, I guess I see that the ratepayers of Ipswich, or the residents, are shareholders in this particular project, and yeah, great to see that progress.
Yes, I too would have liked to have seen some more progress by this stage, and note that time is of the essence. But I am confident in the team that we have to achieve a good outcome. Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour? Noting we have 5 affirmatives. Move to item number 4 on the agenda. That is the Ipswich Central Community Safety Strategy, noting the recommendations being A, Council approve the development of the Ipswich Central Community Safety Strategy in consultation with relevant stakeholders, and B, that the draft Ipswich Central Community Safety Strategy be presented to next Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee for consideration. Could I have the relevant council officer to speak? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Sean Madigan, General Manager, Coordination and Performance. This report relates to the development, as you said, of an Ipswich Central Community Safety Strategy. Council is investing significant funds in our Ipswich Central Precinct, as discussed in the Civic Space Library, Admin Building and Retail assets. Those assets historically, over the last, say, 3 to 4 years, have been in decline and have had a poor reputation across the city. If we are going to invest the funds that we're going to invest in a world-class precinct, we need to ensure that it is safe for our community to come and spend time in. Safety in that area is an interesting topic. There's been a lot of history around safety in the Ipswich CBD, started many years ago with the Safe City program that involved a lot of liaison and interagency collaboration to make the streets a safer place in Ipswich. The reality is, by and large, our Ipswich Central area is actually quite a safe precinct. However, there are a number of factors that combine to give people the perception that it isn't a safe place to come to. So our Safe City team do a fantastic job in there and have for many years. And what we are looking to do is look at a holistic approach to safety in the Ipswich CBD area. We want to develop it up looking at the utilisation of Council's Safe City assets, how we can better partner with other agencies such as the Queensland Police Service, how we can assist youth in the area who are wandering around with nothing to do, to look at options there. We look at things like lighting in the CBD, so not just in our precinct but in the broader precinct. We also look at connections into our precinct from a Sept perspective. So Bottle Alley, as an example, we walked down there the other evening with the Chair and the Mayor, and redesigning that so that it becomes a safe area again. One of the significant points in this report is that it is proposed to do it in full collaboration with stakeholders within Ipswich CBD. So that is other business owners, other agencies, property owners, the like, to do a holistic approach to actually resolve the issue once and for all, if you will, from a council and a community perspective. It is proposed, whilst this report is under my hand as an initiative, that effectively the program will be led by our Safe City and Community Safety team, as is rightly so, but we will work as another stakeholder in that precinct to deliver that. One of the things we need to contemplate is the former council had a Safe City Steering Committee, at which I think there was about 3 or 4 councillors would attend there with senior members of police and other agencies to talk about safety in Ipswich generally, outside the precincts of the CBD itself. And then there's a conversation to be had with this council and the community as to the value of initiating something of a similar nature, perhaps with more stakeholders involved, to monitor and adapt as we need to ensure the safety and perception of safety within our Ipswich CBD in particular, but then broader across the city.
Thank you. Mr Madigan, do we have any questions?
Just a question. Thank you for taking myself and the Chair around there last week. When we were looking around Bottle Alley and a few other areas, we could see that there were parts where it would be great if the council could have access to, not to modify Queensland rail land, but just to have some access, I guess, to do our work. It was noted that it's been quite challenging in the past. Do you have any advice for us, or is there something the council can do to help facilitate a bit of access?
We are in discussions as we speak
Yes.
with Queensland Rail and talking to the different groups within there to get access to do works in Bottle Alley over the live train lines, but also for them to upgrade their fencing and their overpass, in and of itself. Those who have seen it, it looks like a prison environment. It is by no means what I would contemplate to be a modern standard for a rail crossing in Queensland, if you have a look at other examples. So from our perspective, I think there's a role for our state MPs to play potentially in that as well, because at the end of the day it comes down to funding. Predominantly, the works can be done over the rail line, it's just more expensive because you have more risk mitigation measures that have to be in place. So from that perspective, there's a role for the state MPs and our council perhaps to lobby the state MPs to try and get some funds into the precinct. It ties in with the Bell Street access as well. That's another known area of concern, if you will, for entry into it for a number of reasons. So there's all those aspects, and I think I am aware that the chair of this committee had in fact been speaking to the local MP about some of those issues already actively. Bottle Alley, we are looking at some design options around there to bring back to this council, with a view to not just providing additional light or cameras, but also widening Bottle Alley back into our retail precinct as much as we can to make it a much safer and appealing entry point to the Ipswich central area.
Thank you, Mr Madigan.
Thank you, Mr Madigan.
Thank you, Chair.
Now open up for discussion.
Just wholeheartedly agree with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Just
Councillor
to
Johnson.
100% agree with the...
Sorry. Mover, sorry. Jumping ahead. Can we have a mover, please? Councillor Johnick, and a seconder. Thank you, Mayor Harding. Sorry, Councillor Johnick.
Just to the chair, 100% behind any safety strategy to get the CBD activated. Whether the safety issues be perceived or actual, I think that definitely when I'm speaking to my community about how wonderful it's going to be, the number one issue that gets raised is the safety.
Yeah.
So there is definitely some history there, obviously, but we're making steps to alleviate that, so I'm really happy.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Johnick. And I just would like to note that I think the operation of a steering committee is really, really important. This needs to be absolutely an ongoing piece of work, not just, you know, a safety strategy plan, but an ongoing piece of work via a steering committee where we can continue to monitor and implement changes. And yes, I recently met with our local MP, Jennifer Howard, who is also very passionate about making some change and doing what she can to support some initiatives within the CBD. And I guess we will need to, as a council, decide, you know, the strategies we put in place, how far they will reach, and what is defined as Ipswich Central. We want to assist as many of our local business owners and operators as we can. And finally, but probably the most important thing I wanted to mention today is our Safe City camera manager, Larry Waite. I just would like to take the opportunity to thank Larry for all his work with the Safe City program over the years. I was a young teenager when it was first implemented, and sorry, Larry. But I do remember the enormous change that occurred under your guidance, Larry, and so I have so much confidence and delighted to work with you on this new piece of work as we look to invigorate our CBD and bring back the people and let them feel safe, whether it's about perception or not. I look forward to working with you, and thank you for your service. Your knowledge in this area is, you are a leader within the industry. Thank you. Did we vote on that? No. Okay, so if there is nothing further, we will put this matter to the vote. Noting we have 5 in the affirmative. Thank you. We move to the final item on the agenda. Item number 5, naming of your places and spaces, the community engagement report. Can I have the relevant council officer to come forward, please?
Sean Madigan, General Manager, Coordination and Performance. Mayor and Councillors, this report relates to the community engagement exercise that was undertaken in relation to the naming of our spaces and places in the Ipswich Central Precinct. As you'd be aware, a report completed by Robert Stayer around activation and naming of places was completed some time ago and presented to the Council. And then following that, this council requested that we go out and engage with our community around the naming of those places and spaces to test some of the names that had been given and see what ideas are out there in the community. The engagement was conducted on our Shape Your Ipswich engagement platform. The results of the engagement are attached to the report. I do apologise for the number of recommendations there, but it's a question of how we presented the feedback from the community and then enable this council to make a decision in relation to those particular items. I can take the report as read, and the engagement piece is fairly specific in terms of the number of times a name was nominated and the number of likes effectively that each of those got across the community. We do consider this as a very effective engagement piece. The level of engagement for a council matter was actually quite significant to get that many different people involved and interested in it. So it does show that there is an appetite for it. One of the highlights that came out of it there, I think, if we look at it, is Bottle Alley was an interesting one. So, I mean, the advice early on was probably to go away from Bottle Alley. But I think you'll see in this report that the community has well and truly told us that Bottle Alley is what it is known as and what they would like it known as. An interesting one. But that's the value of going out to the community and testing it, as this council directed us to do.
Thank you, Mr. Madigan. Do we have any questions? Mayor?
Mr. Manning, thank you very much. I know that your team, and in particular Ms. Grant, also turned this piece around very quickly, so thank you very much for that. I'm always looking at the purse strings. Do we know how much the consultation costs? I know that we did advertising and things like that, which was required.
Yes. If it's okay, Mayor, I might hand over to Ms Grant to answer that question. You want to come up, Ali?
Or if you can come back to us later.
It's actually noted in the report, Mayor, so
My apologies.
7,400 was it?
I missed that.
Yeah.
And then attached to the community engagement.
That was, my apologies, you did put in there,
That's
$7,878. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think that cost is indicative of the fact that we do have a really good community engagement platform in Shape Your Ipswich to use. The main costs involved there were just promoting that on radio and Facebook and the like to bring them back into our channel.
Yeah.
Any further questions for Mr Madigan? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have ask somebody to move, please? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Milligan. Now open it up for discussion. Mayor? You could,
I don't know if you went as the chair. I really enjoyed the report, actually.
good. Yes, great. And I think it's a great piece of community engagement that's that has been undertaken. And note that there's many people in the community that are very passionate about some names and some of the spaces, and thank everybody for participating. We, as your elected representatives, I know, promised and committed to listening to what our residents want. That was critical to all of our campaigns. So this is a good example of where we've gone out to the people, and the people have spoken. Look, in reflection of it being such a very large, complex and very important piece of work that has to be undertaken, I propose that to move a recommendation that recommendations A, B, C and F, so that relates to the names for the Nicholas Street precinct, a name for the civic space, a name for the main library, as well as Bottle Alley, they be moved to the council ordinary meeting to be held next week, at which time a decision will be made at that meeting, acknowledging that certainly A, B and C are a little time critical at the moment because of the need to order signage with the opening of the library, etc. Very close. And then with the balance recommendations, that they be considered at an ordinary meeting at a later date once councillors have had the time to have a good discussion around that. And the purpose, I guess, of moving it to an ordinary meeting and having these recommendations considered in isolation, it will allow our two councillors that are conflicted out, Councillor Fechner and Councillor Madsen, to join in that particular discussion and decision making, because there's, as I understand it, no conflict around naming of the spaces.
Now, the question is, there's a motion moved, which is substantive, which is different from that. So you'll need to seek the concurrence of the mover and seconder, who are Kunzelman and Milligan.
Yes.
Do they agree with proposal put forward by Councillor Doyle?
I can do that. Yep.
Chair, yes, I.
Okay. So that becomes a variation to that,
Okay.
and the substantive motion is now yours. Okay?
So I move that?
No,
No,
it
it's been
is
moved,
their
yes,
motions.
okay,
It's
yeah.
their motions that has
Okay.
been adjusted in accordance
So we
with.
move to a vote?
Yes.
Okay, so we might now move that.
Or you just need to
Sorry?
see debate.
Do you want discussion?
Sorry, open for discussion. Sorry, Mayor.
No, I agree, Chair. I think it's really important to have all the council
Mhm.
involved with this. It's obviously a piece that's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, and it would be great to have a conversation with the full council on this as well.
And Mayor, I will work with Mr Madigan in ensuring that we have the relevant council officers and specialists
Yeah.
on hand.
Yeah. And as you know, Chair, we've spoken, I was speaking with a local Indigenous group out at Springfield recently, and I mentioned the word Tulma, and it was unknown to them, so I know that council officers have reaffirmed what they already knew, but they went back to the relevant state organisation to verify that that is the Indigenous name for the area of Ipswich there.
Yes, so I think that is Queensland Museums you're referring to, the language expert there.
Yeah.
And I did ask council officers to extend an invitation for them to come and speak to us, but that's not, we can't make that happen, so let's call on relevant council officers.
Okay. Thank you.
Should we put it to a vote now? Okay. All those in favour, confirm that's 5 in the affirmative. And
There's a late item.
sorry,
I think there's a late item. Is there item 6?
I did not see that.
Item 6, urgent considerations.
If I may, Chair, a late item did come through.
Which is the heritage issues.
I haven't reviewed it in depth.
If that's the
I'll-
case, you
I'll-
can defer
I'll-
it to, you can defer it to the ordinary, or you can defer it through to the full council meeting if you wish to, or you
Yeah,
can note it,
my apologies. We'll have to refer that one to the full council meeting.
or through to this meeting next month if you want to, your determination.
I guess,
No, I would like to deal with it before.
The council meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. So you just should move a motion that says this matter be considered at the ordinary council meeting.
Okay, so move a motion that item number 6 be moved to
Be considered
be considered
at the ordinary meeting, the September
to the
ordinary
council's
meeting
ordinary meeting.
of September.
Thank you, Vicky. No other matters that anyone wants to raise? Mayor?
I'll second that.
Sorry.
Thank you.
That's it. Stops.
Okay, so I think that brings us to a close at 12.
Well,
do we have to vote on that, or-
put the
Sorry, you're going to need to move it,
Yeah.
sorry, yes.
Yeah, I
Moved and
did
seconded.
move.
Sorry, it needs to be put.
And
It's been put.
Mayor seconded?
Yep.
Okay,
needs to be
so
put.
we all vote in favour? Thank you, I'm eager to get out. No, not at all. There's 5 in the affirmative. And I think that brings the meeting to a close. Thank you.
Thank you.